There's walkers out there, Carl! 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 There's walkers.
I actually think these were sprinters.
What's that from?
The Walking Dead.
Oh, I didn't know.
The sheriff, he's always talking about the walkers. He always says things like in the back of his throat, like he's got like a mouthful
And he
of food.
talks with his gun a lot.
Yeah, he's
a
always
lot,
putting his gun
a
sideways,
lot.
like he's a straight up G.
Oh.
He's a white English dude. He's not
Anyways,
very
we're
G.
talking about the movie World War Z. And
Wolves.
You did kind of
WWZ.
slur it.
World War Z.
Now you sound pretentious.
I don't want to be told. I don't want to be told that I'm pretentious.
You can't talk
World
right, so you just
War
But
Z.
I will introduce. Let's introduce ourselves. I'm Alex.
Jake.
I'm the man with the plan, Ryan Murphy. My voice cracked a little bit. Just ignore it.
Start over. Start the podcast
I'm the
over.
man with the plan.
No, we need to post this tonight.
Let's cut it and start over.
All right. Anyways,
No, we're going in Bear. That's fine.
They're back in
So
it.
we saw this movie in a packed crowd. Really, I think this is
It was one of the.
had the
saw it next to a
most-
10-year-old. Don't know why he was there. He was cuddling his mother.
Yeah, he was
Well, this was
terrified.
a
I don't think he
PG
was 10.
This was a
I think he was probably like
PG-13 film.
I don't think he was 10.
I
I think
know,
he was
but-
probably 6 or 7 years
Yeah,
old.
he looked actually.
He looked
Yeah.
young. Maybe even younger than that.
10 was a
honestly.
liberal estimate. It's probably
10 was
yeah.
like probably double his
Why
age.
the fuck would you bring your kid? Even though it's PG-13. Oh, whatever. Anyways,
He
that's
obviously
irrelevant.
didn't enjoy it.
That's relevant to the movie review.
No, it really is important though. The crowd, you can tell. Like when I was in line at the crowd, I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be rough."
No,
Because
yeah.
the people that are watching this are the like
The Transformers crowd.
No,
and-
no, it's like the
This
people.
was a normal.
Nah,
They
no.
were a bunch of-
Come on, the
This
girl
is
in
like-
front was like every trailer that
The-
I thought was cool. She's like, "This is stupid." And
No,
Oh yeah, she was a cunt.
the
yeah,
people like
pretty much.
Tries to
imagine
cunt.
like the 14-year-old high school freshmen that think they're the coolest thing on earth. That's everybody at the movie
The
theater.
Transformers crowd.
No, those
That
people don't
sounds
think
exactly
Yeah,
like
preteen
Transformers crowd who would go out and buy Call of Duty right after.
Nah. But they definitely own Call of Duty. Yeah, that's a
You
fact.
just said no, but agreed with me. No, but you're right. You're
They
right.
wouldn't watch
Agree to
Transformers
disagree.
because Transformers is too much of a kid movie. They're watching this because it's an adult
Okay, they're
movie.
watching The Purge. It's
So-
the same crowd as
Yeah.
The Purge.
Yeah.
So
Alright.
World War
Alright.
Z is a movie that stars Brad Pitt. It was directed by many, written by many, and it starts off.
Directed technically by Mark Forster.
Is that official?
That's what it said in the credits, at
Okay.
least, when we saw it.
Well, he starts off with being a.
But you
well,
forgot
his
to
name's
mention. You
Jerry.
forgot to mention his co-stars, two little shits, an adorable,
Hispanic.
spunky little Mexican boy,
Tommy.
and
He's
Tommy.
Hispanic.
He's got a nice white name, not ethnic at all.
Okay, he was
because-
Hispanic, alright? You don't know he's from Mexico?
Okay, I'm sorry. He's Hispanic. And, of course, let's not forget
His
the
ugly-ass
Holocaust
wife.
survivor who played his wife.
The
Because-
Holocaust survivor?
Dude, did you see her? She looked more like a zombie than the zombies did.
She did, except
She was like...
except she wasn't
Did you-
pop, lock, and dropping like the rest of them.
Did you notice the zombies? One of the things they like emphasized was like the cracking of their face.
Yeah.
That was
like,
really weird. I've never seen
Well,
that.
they
Their
also-
mouths got really dried out. Like, they'd been smoking a lot of pot. And they had really bad dry mouth.
They also
It wasn't
would
even just
crack
that, it was
in the
like-
shoulders and the spine. They would like twitch. And they
No,
would
I'm talking the
cracking.
skin.
Oh, the skin.
Yeah, like the skin. Did you notice like especially like right around their forehead and like
I think
cheek?
they showed it later.
was-
It was like deterioration almost.
Yeah,
Like,
and their
because of
teeth
being
somehow
sick.
got longer. I know that obviously the gums can recede,
Yeah.
but it was like I
That's
remember seeing
probably it.
there was one guy in particular where that wasn't like the root of his teeth. Like they were just making his teeth like fucking long. And honestly I think that was just a shitty job on makeup's part because it probably wasn't supposed to be like that. But it looked like he had longer teeth than normal. Anyways, what you were saying, you're gonna give the brief overview. Of
How
the
about you
movie.
do it?
Is that really
Okay.
necessary to
World
give
War
the
Z.
overview of the movie?
World War Z is
Just give a little.
World War Z is based on the book by Max Brooks, World War Z.
And we're not
Actually
going to
not.
talk. And we're not going to
We're
talk
not
about.
gonna. Well,
the
we're gonna
book.
briefly. I'm gonna touch upon it.
No, they
because
actually the
it's
guy
based on
said
the book.
the guy said it wasn't. The author of the book said it wasn't anything like the book. They just bought the rights to the book.
Oh, I know.
To get the
But
title.
The credits said based on the book.
Okay, well, that's a bold-faced
The
lie.
book is basically just, it's like Studs Terkel's The Good War, which is an oral history account of World War II. He goes around and interviews all these people who fought on all these different fronts, civilians, soldiers, survivors, yada, yada, yada. World War Z, same fashion. Civilians, soldiers, survivors, all are interviewed from all different aspects. Basically, it's like Orson Welles' radio broadcast War of the Worlds is a topical scare. What it really is, like most good zombie stories, is a social commentary. Except this one's on a global scale. It's not just about America and consumerism. It's about we as a species, essentially. With that being said, this movie really only has a few things in common with the book. As a matter of fact, the book has slow Romero-style zombies. These are fast.
Was the character
later
Jerry
zombies.
in it that Brad Pitt plays?
No, actually, the narrator who works for the UN, he went around and collecting data after the fact. Like, I believe it takes place 20 years after the end of. They call it like VZ Day, like Victory Over Zack Day, because they're called Zack. That's their generic. It's just the slang term for referring to a zombie.
That's weird.
Thank you, Jake, for your creative input.
But it's just like it's like, why do you need a slang term for that?
Because they
can.
But I mean, it's like a weird thing to have a slang term for. Like,
well, it dives into like part of the psychological aspect of it. You don't really want to acknowledge that they're zombies because that's just something that just seems so.
I guess also a fear factor.
I guess that's true too.
That zombie, you think it's a monster. If it's Zack, it's just some rotting piece
But
of
you know what would suck? If you're the guy in the group named Zack. You're the only guy in the platoon. Zack's not that uncommon of a name. Think about it. How many Zacks you know? If you're that one guy, like, you gotta be like, oh my god, they just made that nickname official. Jesus Christ. Anyways, I am screwed.
The book...
I gotta shoot myself in the foot.
Honestly, the book
out of here.
should have been made into like an HBO series. Would have been really excellent. They didn't do that. They made it a movie. I love the book. It's honestly my favorite book. So with that being said...
But we're going to review the movie
on its own terms. I was disappointed that they didn't adapt the book directly, but whatever. We're going to review the movie as it is because even though it shares a name in common with World War Z, it isn't the book, so we're going to review it as a movie by itself. Anyways, brief overview. Basically, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Really, it goes into hell in a handbasket literally overnight, which
well... There were the beginning.
There were countries going under martial law that he saw on TV.
So there was that.
Philadelphia literally went to hell in 5 minutes, like at dawn.
It was funny. They're like, "What's martial law? I don't know." Well, I'm making pancakes.
Let's drive to Philadelphia. Oh shit, zombies!
See, that's one thing that it kind of showed me is that it kind of made me think that, you know what, in the state of a crisis, nobody is prepared for it. I understand, like, another country declares martial law. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should completely freak out. But if you see multiple countries in the world declaring martial law, it's something you would think people would kind of notice.
That's something, actually, in the book, World War Z, there's what's called the Great Denial, essentially.
Yeah.
A bunch of people were in denial about it.
But the thing
I'm assuming the book kind of...
But I'm going to say this. I think, say, if they were slow zombies, like it was a lot of elements of them trying to keep it quiet, say the government or the media, but this literally felt like, hey, there was some crazy stuff going on there, like, the week before, and
oh shit, it's on our front yard.
Oh shit, it's in Philadelphia, run!
No, that's not what they were doing. These obviously weren't hiding it. It was on national TV that many countries were declaring martial law.
I just want to do the brief synopsis.
Okay, that's stupid. We don't need a brief synopsis. I don't understand why we do that.
Just a little bit.
The world is becoming overrun by zombies. Brad Pitt used to work for the UN. He's working for the UN again. Now his job is to literally run across the globe trying to find a cure for the zombie apocalypse.
Yep.
Which, you know, was really funny. Like, okay, he got on the boat. Like, okay, you know this, people, because, like, you know, he's gonna live. And he's like, I'm not gonna do it. I want to stay here with my family. Which, like, for some reason, they had to have the element, like, he's done dangerous shit before, except we kind of know.
You know, that's the problem. All those zombie movies, they always point out the kid and the woman get you killed. That's what's happening. They're getting him killed.
But they, like, tell him, like, well, we brought you on here for a purpose. You're not just gonna, like, sit here. So, like, I literally want him to threat, like, we'll knock you out of the boat, like, if you don't agree.
Well, that was, it was implied, obviously.
But his wife's like, oh, you can't do it. It's like, bitch, this is why we're alive.
Yeah.
God damn it, you're so ugly. Why am I with you?
All of the remaining top government officials, they're not just like, you know what, that guy was nice. Let's do him a favor. Let's do him a solid.
Lady, I'm not literally Brad Pitt in this world.
His family is so fucking... Okay, we'll get to that later, because his wife almost gets him killed from a distance.
One thing it showed to me is, like,
his kid.
Organization falls apart in every country they go to. And that's one of the big things that gets him hurt, is that it gets to the point where, like, you notice they start...
Do you say that? Because they visit one country that is working, but apparently because zombies know how to scale a wall...
No, but if you notice... The organization kept them alive so much longer than everybody else. And if the organization had been better,
but don't you think it's
everywhere?
Don't you think it's tough to have an organization when, let's just talk about this, these zombies in this universe, essentially you turn to zombies full capacity, like you're a complete danger in about 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said the longest time was like 10 minutes.
And not to mention, you're literally indestructible other than being hit with a crowbar or bullets. Because, like, you can fall from buildings, you can get hit by cars, you can scale walls and fall off of them.
But the thing is, organization... There's obviously no organization, because if you notice, Brad Pitt seems to be the only person that thinks in this whole movie.
Really?
He's the only person that
There's a few times where I don't think... Well, and that's actually something
because if you
I
notice,
would say...
Brad Pitt, I'm going to pick that apart for a second. Okay, early on, when they just left Philadelphia, and I believe they're like in New Jersey or somewhere, Brad Pitt, as they're going up to the apartment building, tells his daughters to basically shut the fuck up. They're drawn in by sound.
Yeah.
Later on, when he's in South Korea, the soldiers are like, yeah, they're attracted to sound. And it blows Brad Pitt's fucking mind. He's like, ooh! Like, he's just like, I don't fucking believe that.
Not to mention he doesn't realize to silence his damn cell phone.
Yeah, he's given a satellite cell phone with a direct link to his wife, and obviously the ship and stuff. For those of you listening, his wife is a total fucking cunt. And Brad Pitt doesn't realize that, hey, if I'm out here in the middle, out in the open, surrounded by possible zombies who don't know I'm out here yet, maybe I should put this cell phone on silent. His wife, by the way, which I didn't think it would be protocol, like, I'm assuming she would know, like, I probably shouldn't call him just randomly. Like, that's probably a bad idea. His wife calls him as they're, like, trying to get back onto a plane. Rings really loudly, and you hear all, like, the zombies go,
and that essentially kills several people.
The thing is, he may not have always made the best decision, but nobody else in this movie at any time thought about anything.
He's like,
they never planned,
but I will say this,
or organized anything.
That is a problem with the movie itself, and not the movie trying to make a point about it.
Like, it seemed honestly like Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, I was just wondering if you were trying to say, like, the writers were trying to make a point that there's no organization, or if that's the argument, or if it's...
I mean, realistically, that's also true. We don't have an organization for something like that.
But I mean, also, the reveal in this movie that solves it all, don't you think someone would have figured it out other than Brad Pitt's character, who's not a doctor, and all he did was by basic observation.
That's what I'm saying, is nobody else thought in the whole movie. Nobody else noticed anything. I understand that he kind of has that doctor instinct from that one doctor that he talked to, and they kind of go back on that. But the thing is he's the only one that at any time pays attention to anything. Which is
surprising
works.
Because he's kind of coming across as being like an everyman.
Yeah, you know what, honestly...
There's an element with, like, he cares about his family, he does the right thing, he wants to, like, save the world, essentially, but then it's like, how could...
Nah, he's not an everyman. I wouldn't say no.
It was honestly, like, it reminded me of Idiocracy, how Luke Wilson is a man of average intelligence surrounded by retards. That's what Brad Pitt was. He was a man of average intelligence and average observational skills surrounded by total fucking pants-on-head retards.
Well, that's the thing, is nobody seemed... As well as the fact that they had very vastly differing public service people. Like, if you notice, the one... at one point in time, a member of the military takes his own life due to being bitten by a zombie. Yeah. And he's willing to take his own life because he knows he's going to turn. And he knows that's going to, like... I mean, he assumes he's dead anyway. But there's a point in time where a police officer of the same type just runs past injured civilians just to get food for himself. And there's, like, such a differing level of, like... I don't feel like that's how we would be.
It was... Well...
I think it would either be, like... Everybody's just going to be like, you know what? Public service is out the window now. These people have to deal with themselves. We don't have the ability to handle this. Or it's going to be like, public service is going to be as good as they always are and say, you know what, we're going to do our job as well as we can.
There's also supposed to be context, because the soldier who takes his own life is with his own troops at his base. Yeah. So there's still, I guess, order there. Whereas the police officer is out for himself and everything's already fallen to shit. My problem is with that scene with the police officer and everything falling to shit. Okay, let's say... There's a guy named Ted. Ted is a white-collar office worker, has a 9-to-5 job, and on Tuesday he goes to a job at 9 o'clock, goes home at 5 o'clock at night, whatever, comes home, eats dinner, goes to bed, whatever. Wakes up the next day, and there's a major disaster. Let's say zombies are running amok in his hometown. Suddenly, Ted, or whatever the fuck I named him, decides that while gathering supplies, he's just gonna fucking rape somebody. Okay, I understand that obviously...
Not to mention, don't you think with the giant outbreak that people would already be seeking shelter?
Yeah. My problem
Especially
is
how fast these zombies run, like...
That's what I'm saying.
Super fast.
No faster than Usain Bolt.
Yeah,
The
nobody
one.
seems to have a system of handling this. I mean, realistically, if you think about it, nobody would have a system of handling this because they didn't expect it to happen. But I also kind of think that people don't follow what would logically happen. If you think about it like, okay, preparing, it makes sense. You need this, like, food and stuff.
Hey, Jake.
But I don't think people would do.
You just made this point.
No.
Like,
I'm making
you
a
kept saying how...
No, I'm making a different point now.
Okay. But
He's
I want to
beating
go
over
back
it.
to the
Alright,
actual
good.
movie, because you're, like, criticizing how world governments would handle this. I want to go back to the movie in that their portrayal of the breakdown of society is really poorly done. Because it's okay, it's awful, but in situations like that, like Katrina, where things just break down, you know, women are vulnerable, they're going to get raped, and Brad Pitt's wife, spoiler alert, is almost raped in the supermarket. Everybody else is running around for supplies. This is like, I guess the scenario, because literally zombies show up, like, I want to say 10 minutes later. This is a scenario where people are, you know, they're not, I wouldn't say to the point yet where they're shooting each other, but they're getting close. Besides that, they're all, it's a survival situation. It's not a, let's all be barbarian situation because civilization, or
Not
because
just
civilization
yet.
is
I feel
broken
like
down.
it has to settle down at some point.
Yeah, it has to settle down before people finally, you know, drop the facade of civilization and just become fucking animals. So the whole idea that she's going to be raped when the day before, the two guys who were about to do it were probably just average Joes. Doing
And not to
whatever
mention,
the
they're
fuck.
probably like, canopies, hey, chick to rape.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sweet.
I
I didn't see that at aisle 17. It doesn't say rape up there.
But
Rape on aisle 17.
that's what I'm saying. Is like,
rape on aisle
I
17.
think they're trying to portray it too much. Like that's what I was trying to say before I was rudely cut off.
No, you were talking, Jake. You were talking about governments not having a
But see,
plan.
No, but I'm
I-
saying that they're trying. The way they're portraying it is they're trying to portray that this would be like the ideal. If this happened, this is how people would want you to behave. But that's not how people actually would behave. Should a huge crisis come out, that's not immediately how it happened. That would eventually happen. But the first thing people are going to think is get away. They're not going to think like. I mean, like, okay,
I just said that.
I know that's because you cut me off before I could say.
I'm going to cut
stole
you
my
off
thunder.
again. I think the problem with this that you're arguing is have been so many rewrites and added directors on this. I think you could tell that there's a lot of ideas thrown in here that are halfway done, don't make sense with other parts of the movie.
Yeah, they're conflicting ideas.
It's
There's
kind of
so many
like it's
different
like
ideas.
a big macaroni
Yeah.
picture, and everyone's has their hands on it.
There are-
And there's no.
There's no organization.
It never felt like at all the same movie and theme throughout. It turned into, here's a horror element, here's a thriller part, and it felt like you could take these scenes out. I don't want to say rearrange them, because it is sequential, but it felt like they're not the same movie.
Yeah, that was annoying. It almost seemed like
And it wasn't done on purpose.
at one time, it almost seemed like, well, multiple times, it almost seemed like they wanted it to be a horror movie, but then it didn't seem like they went through with that. It just seemed kind
And
of
I
like
think
they're
the
like,
problem with that is, I don't know if our listeners know this, but this is a PG-13 movie. And so PG-13 means very little gore. Pretty much, you could only kind of like show maybe scrapes.
Or bloody bandages.
Bloody bandages.
But no, I don't
But
mean
you
that.
can't
I mean,
show
like,
like blood gushing, which is, I know a lot of zombie films sometimes love to show the gore and
Yeah.
to just like, that's what they're trying to entertain with. And
That's
I understand maybe holding back a little bit, but I also think there's certain parts like someone got their arm chopped off or people
Yeah.
getting bit
My
that showing a little blood.
that has nothing to do with
better.
what I'm saying. I've not. That
Well,
doesn't,
I know I'm
that-
not going.
yeah.
I'm changing.
Okay, that, well, I thought that, but yeah, that doesn't. I'm like, I mean, at some points, it almost seemed like they tried to make it scary and suspenseful, and like, oh, there's gonna be a jump scare coming or something like that, or a couple of them. There were a couple of jump scares,
I thought they were pretty. I jumped to one.
but
yeah.
then the
I
thing,
don't know if you noticed, but like I almost hit you because
But-
I wasn't like lolling off, but I was kind of just like
was it
sitting in
the
my chair.
airplane jump scare.
No, there's a part where a zombie just like runs right at the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And to be honest, and this movie isn't 3D. I think in 3D that would have been very, very convincing.
very convincing in a movie.
But
Let's reword that a little bit.
Anyways.
you're gonna be convinced this zombie is jumping out of the screen.
there are 2 points I want to touch on.
An
First
illusion.
one is you were talking about how there are different elements of all these movies. Didn't you say this movie was rewritten like 5 times and like re-edited a couple
This movie
times?
I just looked up. It's 6 years in the making.
Yeah,
That's
you
ridiculous.
can definitely tell this is a Franken movie. This is a bunch of bits and pieces.
And the
Stitched
third act,
together very
the
loosely.
very end was rewritten because of
It's stupid.
people saw a screening of it and completely hated it. So they like redid the ending. They completely redid it. And
I
to
still
be
don't
honest,
like it.
I'll comment about the ending. I didn't really think there was tension because they kind of like told you this information, and going by this movie's logic, you kind of like said, "Okay, I believe that now," and then it's kind of like, "Oh no, is it gonna work?" But then we're all thinking like, "Well, yeah, if we believe this and we believe that, we should believe this also."
To me, what they actually did at the end there is, I honestly believe they want a sequel.
Yes,
to me, the way they set it up, because if you notice,
they've already done that.
They put it to the point where it's like
that's in pre-production.
They put it to the point where they're like, okay, we're telling you. I mean, they even mentioned the thing that it's not a cure; it buys them time. Like the fact that they mentioned that in the movie, that this is buying us time.
The other thing with it being a Franken movie, the problem is with that is the movie also defies its own logic repeatedly. There are multiple instances in the movie where they've established some fact before, and they completely violate it. And the other thing I wanted to say was back on the gore. You know, I honestly, 9 times out of 10, I kind of oppose gore in movies because I feel like gore is used as a crutch. It's used as like, look at the blood and isn't that terrifying?
That's used as the entertainment factor.
That's annoying.
And I don't like that. But with a zombie movie, the gore is almost kind of a necessary evil in a way because it's used to show just how much of monsters these zombies are. Because zombies used to be people, and now they're these horrible monsters that are tearing people limb from limb.
Especially when this is an infection type of zombie where blood and biting is how it's transmitted. And I'll give this at least. These zombies weren't about like flesh eating. They're more like, say, rabies where they just like to bite.
Yeah.
Hosts,
it was like 20 days later.
Which was more convincing on how they spread.
Yeah.
I'll give them that.
My problem is with the biting. Because there's a scene where you see a zombie bite a guy, and then he turns. There's not even a little bit of blood. It's almost like the zombie came up, gave the guy a hickey, and he's like, "No, I don't want this!" And then he becomes like, runs off to give somebody else a
and
hickey.
Then he starts pop locking and dropping right on the floor.
I'm gonna give you a hickey, girl.
Do your thing, girl. Pop lock and drop it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
they move hilariously.
I noticed plot holes. And I feel like that means it's gotta be awful. If I noticed the plot holes, like, you guys say there's plot holes in anything, but I wasn't watching for it. When I go to the movie, I don't actually even watch it with the intention of reviewing it. I watch it and...
What the hell? Jake, what the hell are you telling me?
I didn't actually see this movie, guys.
I just watched the trailers.
I've been just telling you all this stuff about... Wait, your whole government thing has been like just a cover-up?
I'm gonna go on a rant about government.
No, I read a history book last night. And that's
right.
No, like, my thing is, for the holes is like, I noticed them so much that it was affecting my ability to enjoy the movie, and that's how bad they were. Like, I couldn't enjoy it because I'm like, what's going... Like, this doesn't even make any sense.
Let's go around and, at this point, just give our ratings, and then just give some final thoughts. Okay. So go ahead, Ryan.
Honestly, just completely forget it. Go pick up the book World War Z. It's fantastic. You'll be a hell of a lot more scared than you are this movie. My final thoughts are, this is, like I said before, it's a Franken movie. And honestly, for it being a zombie movie, aside from jumping at the jump scares, which anybody can make a jump scare and make you jump, I wasn't scared at all during this movie. Honestly, there's even a time where one of the zombies is up at the door and it's like, menacing Brad Pitt. And it does this like Alvin and the Chipmunks meets Hannibal Lecter.
And the theater laughed.
Yeah, everybody laughed. You're not supposed to laugh when you're supposed to be, like, laughing and being scared. Those are two opposite ends of the emotional spectrum. That was just a good illustration of how this movie failed. At no point in a zombie movie you're supposed to be like, wow, the zombies sure are comical, aren't they? I didn't care about the characters. The characters are flat. The acting, honestly, was kind of mediocre. This movie just failed. There's no other way to put it. This movie just completely fell on its ass.
Go ahead, Jake.
Don't see it. To me, I feel like I'm the voice of uneducation here, and the fact that I base everything off of how much enjoyment I got out of being there.
As do we.
No, you guys based it on a lot of other garbage that doesn't matter.
Okay.
But
ours is just a more eloquent enjoying of things.
But to me, like, it's based entirely on how enjoyable it was, not even how good of a movie it was. The time went by very quickly. I felt like at the end is like, this went by really quickly, but I did not feel at all like it was enjoyable. The whole time I was just like, this is almost like work. It's just, there's holes in it that to me, I'm like, this would be really interesting if I knew the answer to this, but I don't. And so it just seems like there's a premise that could be there, but there's so many holes to it in such simple things that it ruins the enjoyment of the movie for me because I don't know any of the answers to questions I wanted to ask.
For me, I would say give this movie, you know, at this point, forget it.
You were gonna say like Rental.
I was gonna say
you were gonna say Rental, and you
I was
just
gonna throw my bottle at
I was gonna say don't. I was gonna say don't see it,
Yeah,
but since like this is 2 days after we saw this, thinking more about this movie and like telling people about it, it's pissed me off even more. I just have a few notes here. I felt like the family element was forced and completely overused.
Yes.
Not necessary.
Let's think. Pop, Lock, and Drop It Zombies. God, they were so fucking retarded. It was very clear that different people directed it. Like, certain points where, like, the style completely changed, and there was no transition to it. It was just...
Too many cooks spoil the broth.
Especially, when they're in Israel, and they show the whole preview showing Israel, I'm like, this felt like a different movie. Like, they pulled this right out.
Kind of like The Hobbit.
The film also, like, telegraphs... For
Hobbit? What the fuck?
No, they just took The Hobbit and took the
It's
green
an
off
unexpected journey.
No, they took the green off the pastures and just put that in. They took a screenshot.
Bilbo, we've got to fight the
Alright,
zombies.
let me finish here. The film also telegraphs some foreshadowing elements, like, extremely heavily, to the point where I thought the characters were going to start flicking me in the forehead that I wasn't paying attention. This movie felt like it was a movie made by executives and not necessarily a writer and director.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take a lot of, like, chances. Now, granted, we saw a movie, Now You See Me, that took a chance, and we said that was fucking stupid.
But at least it took a chance.
But I'll give it at least this. It gave it a chance.
It's enjoyable
This
to watch.
movie was a run-of-the-mill, typical blockbuster. It has some kind of thrills. You know what? They're better off if you saw them on YouTube. To be honest, they're not
it's
worth.
like a compilation video on YouTube. Of these
Essentially.
Was there at the beginning of the movie? Was that one of those like zombie eating things? Was that news clip from that thing that happened in Los Angeles?
Probably.
That's what
they
it
used
looked
real news clips.
Yeah,
By the
that's
way,
what it looked exactly
sorry to
like.
interrupt your notes, but I just want to say one quick thing. Another qualm I had: the fucking credit sequence. Was it just me, or did it seem like it went on for an hour?
Yeah, it was.
I
really
got
long.
tired of it. Sorry. You can go
Yeah,
on.
and also probably one of the poorest climaxes I've seen in a movie.
Oh,
this
that was
year.
It was like
boring.
it just ended. It was like ta-da.
This
Super
was
boring.
equivalent to After Earth, where it ended, and
You didn't-
I think Ryan and I both put our hands up like, is this it? It's over? And then, like, the epilogue is showing the shit I wanted to fucking see, which would have been, you know, in quotes, World War Z, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was. Well, again, I know you said not to mention the book, but in the book it talks about the war and the reclamation of cities. Actually, in England, because gunpowder is scarce, they use fucking swords and maces. It's like medieval times all over again. And they showed the brief clip of like the Russian cities. Like they're fucking Russians with big ass beards and like hammers and sickles. That shit. As much as this movie sucked, that shit looked cool. And then it ended. It was like, look at this fight. Okay, it's over.
You know, I have a suggestion here, listeners. If you want to see a movie that has fast zombies that's done better, go watch 28 Days Later.
Or even the Dawn of the Dead remake.
I'll even give that. Both of those movies actually have tension, there's a little fear. And I'll say this about the 28 Days Later ones. They will be chasing people, and then they will eventually slow down because, you know, they're actually still kind of fucking human. Instead of being these things that can sprint as fast as possible, they can scale each other. There's a part where they turn the corner and they crush a bunch of each other against the wall.
It's like water.
And I was
flowing.
thinking, man, the CG was so bad.
It was.
It was bad.
I didn't notice it.
I did.
It was bad.
Especially when they were
I
climbing
did
walls.
notice that none
It
of your
looked
review had
super
anything to
fake.
do with how enjoyable, how much fun you had at the movie. So
I didn't
you
have
kinda-
any fun.
So you
at the
kind of
movie.
lied about that, but whatever. That's fine. My reviews.
You know what? I will say
true.
the plane thing was kind of crazy, even though how it started and how it ended. When I think about in terms of the movie, it was dumb. Again, that's why I said go see this on YouTube. If you saw that clip and you just went, "Hey, that was not bad," you didn't pay anything. You just had to see some 15-second commercial about dildos on a mirror or something, and so and that's about it. And then you could just walk away and go like, well.
Speaking of that plane, I don't know if it's just okay. I'll wrap it up. I don't know if it was just plot holes or just the steady clanking of Deus Ex Machina in the background, because it seemed like they kept writing themselves into corners.
I don't know if
with
it
all
was
the
Deus
re-edits,
Ex Machina, but it was always just convenient writing.
which
Something crazy happened,
Isn't-
but then
well-
the story was able to continue
It
because
wasn't
they were
which
for
was
that.
Deus Ex Machina though.
Aaron
Because,
Lecharfie
like,
wrote it.
that okay.
It's
An example of
basically
Deus
writing
Ex
yourself
Machina.
into a corner and then being like, ta-da.
Well,
Deus Ex Machina at the
it's
end of the stand.
It's an
pretty
act
Deus
of God,
Ex
essentially. So,
Yeah,
say the
okay.
Eagles,
All right.
Lord of the Rings, spoiler alert, like they pick him up, or the eagles at the end of Hobbit. Spoiler.
Oh, Hobbit, yeah. Brought it back. Brought it back around. Told you, that's where it's from.
Congratulations, Jake.
Told you, that's where it's from.